Welcome to Fight News Now. I'm your host, John Pollock. Coming up over the next hour, we will be bringing you the first episode of UFC Embedded, promoting UFC 200. We're also going to be taking a look at UFC 198. John Ramdine is going to be returning as we chat all of the news going on in mixed martial arts. Coming up on today's show. I'm here with Robin Black and the man that has graced us with his presence, who we are always so happy to have join us. John Big Shot Ramdine is back with us. Where were you yesterday? We missed you a lot. We had a great discussion about weight cutting, and you just simply cut us out of your life.
Hey, listen, I was in the Toronto Bluffs with Glory middleweight champion Simon Marcus as he's getting ready for his next big fight. This guy...
pick up that name.
Hey, you're asking me where I was. This is where Way and I were shooting some viz. This guy trains like an animal. He is in tip-top form. His coaches believe he's on a different level right now, and we're going to see some new wrinkles to his game.
Is he part of the John Ramdine all-animal team?
He is. I think he's first ballot all-star.
I actually heard rumors that you were testing the free agent market, seeing what was going on at the W Network and Food Network and stuff like that.
John Ramdine on the W Network would be something.
That was a segue.
Well, there will be lots of footage, I'm sure, coming up and chatting with Simon Marcus. Looking forward to that. You mentioned free agency. Rory MacDonald was in that very seat not all that long ago where me and John Ramdine were asking him about free agency. It's a big story going into his fight with Stephen Thompson, the last fight on his deal. Here is Rory MacDonald chatting about that very topic.
Yeah, I think it's important to get it out there. It's a known topic about, fighter pay now, and I don't know. I think it's beneficial to me that I get it out there too. So when it comes time to negotiate, I have other sources to talk with. It's a known thing. People are buzzing about it. Sure. It's a good thing.
That was UFC welterweight and noted Toronto Blue Jays aficionado Rory MacDonald, and he gets set for that Stephen Thompson fight, and telling us, John, the fact he made that decision. He wanted that to be out there. He wanted it to be known. This is the last fight on my deal, and he's going to find himself in a very unique spot. I think win or lose. I don't think this is one of those cases where you have to say, wow, you're really gambling here in this fight, win or lose, if it's going to have a drastic difference. Certainly wants a victory and go to the free agent market as strong as possible, but I think even a loss to a top welterweight like Stephen Thompson, Rory MacDonald is a guy that you've said you can build a welterweight division around no matter what organization you are in the world.
Exactly. You just have to look at the age of Rory MacDonald. Only 26. You look at Robbie Lawler, Stephen Thompson, Johnny Hendricks, all those guys into their 30s. Rory MacDonald, he's essentially Canada's next George St. Pierre. He trains at the same facility. You look at his fighting style, very, very fan-friendly, exciting. People love watching Rory MacDonald fight, and I'm not surprised that he would be willing to test the free agency market, considering some of the options that he has right now, Bellator being one of them, one championship in Southeast Asia. So there are opportunities for him to go other places. And I think it's very, very good for the sport. The UFC, they've had a commitment to cleaning up the sport, making it as fan-friendly, but at the same time as clean as humanly possible. These are steps that need to be taken in order for the sport to be the best it possibly can be. And the only way it can be the best sport possible is by having competition. And we've seen Bellator being the competition right now, and I think it's going to force the UFC to step up their game.
Yeah, hey, remember when Chris Weidman said he wanted to fight out his contract against Anderson Silva for the title? That is the craziest thing in retrospect, but look how it worked out for him. It worked out great. He became the UFC champion and then defended it against Anderson Silva with an enormous contract by comparison. So it can definitely work out. I was thinking the other day when this came up, and you've seen Bellator come and take Ben Henderson and guys like that. Remember that lawsuit? It's still out there. Yeah. John Fitch and guys like that,
Carlos
Nate
Newton,
Quarry,
yeah.
Carlos Newton, Carlos Condit. No, not Carlos Condit. They tried an antitrust lawsuit, a monopoly type of suit, saying, hey, it's unfair competition. The UFC has a monopoly. There's no way that can be seen to be true now.
Yeah.
When you have
can they look back and say during that time when the UFC, they bought Pride and they bought the WEC and they bought Strikeforce, you did see the competition shrink. So
sure, maybe, but at the same time, harder to make that point now when you can just go out there and go, look, we lost These guys, it is a much wider open market. The UFC's ending up looking pretty good, as lately they have been. It's been, to go out there and really clean up the sport, really go after juice, really, really do that, and be out there in a competitive environment. Dana White, I don't know if it's age or what, but the guy seems to have mellowed as the face of it. But yeah, I think overall, if fighters are getting more money, I think everybody's happy.
Exactly.
One other thing on Rory MacDonald is that he has been the most vocal supporter of Conor McGregor during this time, where I'm sure that there are a lot of fighters out there who quietly are rooting for the guy, but publicly it's largely been, there's been no one to me bigger than Rory MacDonald that has voiced his support of Conor McGregor. And you look at what Conor has gone through over the last 2 weeks, and yes, you can look at it of where this guy finds himself. He's off the 200 card, but does part of you also applaud that here is someone that does have more leverage than 98% of that roster, and this guy was willing to try and exercise it. He tried to go with the UFC with the weight he had on his shoulders, and he's come out with this outcome. He's not on UFC 200. And we look back when Randy Couture tried to get out of his deal, and everyone was looking at, could this be the start of a union? What is Randy going to do here? And he ended up back with the UFC. I look at Conor McGregor, and I don't necessarily want to shun this guy's efforts, that here was someone that knows that he does have some leverage, and it doesn't appear to be enough that he got what he wanted, but I applaud the guy for trying, because many will not. Many complain behind the scenes, but there's no actions, and Conor did try to act upon it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you mentioned, Rory MacDonald, and when we talked to him here on the desk, he said, you have to know your worth. He understands his worth, and that's why he can be vocal, because he's one of the stars of the UFC. People love watching this guy. A fighter like Rodriguez or Diego Brandao, I don't know if they can come out and say, hey, I fully support Conor McGregor and the decisions he's making, because they don't have that type of pull, and it could have a negative effect on their career. Rory MacDonald, I don't think, cares, because he understands where his place is in the UFC.
Yeah, as far as Conor McGregor goes, anytime somebody stands up for what they believe in, we should all applaud that. Everybody wants to be like that, or would hope to be like that in their life. So that is very admirable. And I'm a big Conor McGregor guy. I love the guy's skills. I love the way he innovates. I'm a big fan of his. The one question that I have when I look at it is, you go out in whatever job any of us do, and we go and we do a good job and we bring value. You're going to go back to your boss and say, hey, look, I brought some value. Can I have a little more of this? Or could you give me a bigger office, or whatever it is you're after? And you might get that. Then you go out and bring a little more value, and you go back, hey, can I just have a little, I know I just got a raise, can I have another one? I don't know how many times you get to keep doing that until eventually your boss or the corporation or whoever it is goes, you know what, man, I thought we just had this figured out. And I think some people will perceive McGregor asking for different things that way. Myself, personally, I look at it and go, this guy fully believes that it was his hard work and dedication and sacrifice and non-stop obsessive commitment to training and preparing for a fight that made him great.
But is that true?
I believe that's true.
Because why wasn't he that? And again, I love Conor McGregor. You described everything perfectly. But why wasn't he that big of a star in Cage Warriors? Why wasn't the world tuning in? Because the UFC is the biggest platform.
And that's part of the thing. It's like you can go out there and say, hey, look what I've done, but you couldn't have done that without them. And that ends up being the push and the pull of it. There's no right or wrong answer. People can argue, like most things, we can pick sides, and I'm a McGregor guy. No, I'm a UFC guy. You can do that, but most of these things are very complicated, and both sides probably feel like they're right. Just like if you went into your boss and had a disagreement or a conflict, your boss would feel that he's right and you'd feel that you're right. There's something to learn from this kind of stuff, but it's rarely that guy's wrong and that guy's right.
It's just interesting when you look at the history of unions in sports, and how if you were to put that into that kind of a sport like mixed martial arts, and suddenly it's a fighters association that is looking at the goodwill of the fighters here, and they're representing Miesha Tate, who is going to make less off this pay-per-view because Conor McGregor is removed from it. There are fighters that are going to be hurt by Conor McGregor not being on this card, but you don't get that united front where it's going to be the fighters versus management. You have kind of a mishmash of that, and there are very few of the Conor McGregors that are going to pick that public battle. And I think that's been the most interesting case here, that when one guy did go against the UFC appears to have come out of this pretty well unscathed when all is said and done. But we will have lots of Conor McGregor to talk about in the next number of months, I'm sure. Diego Brandao has been let go by the...
You mentioned Diego Brandao now. He has no leverage now.
Well, you're right.
Diego Brandao does not have a ton of leverage. Sherdog was the first to report this released. He's facing a number of felony counts for a number of incidents at a strip club. He also had failed his post-fight drug test at UFC 195 for marijuana metabolites. This was someone that, after winning season 14 of The Ultimate Fighter, came in, was someone with a lot of promise, and it appears that, out of the UFC at this point, and certainly at a crossroads in his career, and facing a number of legal issues now before he can ever talk about fighting again.
Yeah, it's true, but what's interesting is, remember we had Ken Shamrock here, and Ken Shamrock said, expect over the next number of years, a lot of these guys that have dealt with, head injuries and just dealing with everything that's involved in mixed martial arts, they're going to be doing, involving themselves in criminal activities. And this is a perfect example, and I imagine things like this are going to continue to happen in mixed martial arts because, again, it's not an easy sport. You're dealing with head trauma constantly. You're dealing with pressure of the public, of your team. You have family obligations. This is what you need to do to pay the bills and feed your family. However, because we were just talking about competition and Diego Brandao is somewhat of a name, I imagine that Bellator World Series of Fighting will probably pick this guy
And I
up.
think the UFC will go, you can have him. I mean, we'd have your back on the weed, but once you start pulling the gun out of your pants and clubbing people with the butt of it, I don't care you used it this way, you brought it out as it's not a good thing. But, as much as Ken Shamrock is a guy we like here at the network, you look at it percentage-wise, I don't know, how many fighters have we seen over the past few years? 1,000 fighters at the UFC over the past few years. The percentage that have committed crimes are probably no higher than the percentage of lawyers. Actually, lower than lawyers, probably. Mathematically, they just happen to be in the public eye.
All right. They aren't lawyers, but they're tremendous analysts, and you can catch them each and every Monday night, 5 rounds here on Fight Network. Note their new start time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, beginning this Monday night.